I've got a newly. I hope you notice, apart from my tequila and my vape tonight, I've got beautifully pressed shirts. Yeah.
Has that just come out for this interview, or
No, no, it's just been pressed by my lady that does my ironing, ready for this interview with. She said, "Are you being interviewed by Umar from BoxNation tonight?" I went, "Yeah." Big fan, she said. Big fan of him and his trips all over the world.
you've got a lady who irons your stuff for you?
Of course I have. I don't do my own ironing. Do you do your own?
No,
Does your mum do it or does your girlfriend do it?
we've got someone who comes and does it actually.
Oh, well, there you go. You got a lady that does it, or a man, or whoever it is that does
No,
it.
it's a lady. It's a lady. Anyways, this is Umar for Box Nation. It's fight week.
Cheers.
It is fight week in Manchester. Derek Chisora makes his last ring walk in the UK. It'll be his second last fight, if he does have his 50th. But this is a big task ahead of him. Southpaw, tricky customer, Otto Wallin, been in with a lot of top guys, of course. How do you think he fares this Saturday, Derek?
How do I think Derek fares?
Yeah.
I think he wins. I think he's going to be durable. I think he's going to get on the inside. I think he's going to bury his head on Valin's chest, and I think he's. This is what I want to happen for Derek. Not that I don't want Otto to have a good night, but having spent. I mean, I wasn't one of the ones that got in the bath with Derek at the bathhouse last week. Were you or not?
I didn't get in the sauna, but I was there. Yeah.
Yeah, very wise, I think. Yeah, a few of our colleagues did, and I think they had a nice time with Derek. And he was brilliant fun last week. He's really on it. I think they should have called this the penultimate dance because I think he will fight again, be it against a Deontay Wilder or a Dillian White or whoever it's going to be. I don't think it'll be a top 8 guy, even though since his victory over Joe Joyce, he's snuck into the top 10. I
Ngannou in
don't.
Africa could be another one.
Nagano in Africa. Oh, that's a tough old fight for him. Is that I hadn't thought about Nagano in Africa. So Nagano in Cameroon, maybe.
Yeah.
Or Nagano and Derek in where did he come from? Was it Zimbabwe?
Zimbabwe, but I'm not sure if
Oh,
I'm not sure on the political climate of Zimbabwe, to be honest, at the
no, I
moment.
think they could have a fight there. But the problem is fights don't seem to get off the ground in Africa, and we can touch on Bakole and Joshua again if you want to today, because that's a bit of an odd scenario. I think um, Derek, as we saw last week when we spent time with him, we were in a tiny, cramped little room in a members club where it's a spa really with rooms and food. And I enjoyed a bit of caviar with him when I was interviewing him, and some borscht soup, which was lovely in kind of what is basically a Russian establishment, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Derek talked about his relationship with Nigel Farage and Donald Trump Jr. and Donald Trump. And he really is an amazing character. And when you think that Derek goes all the way back to 2008, I think it was, and the 12 rounds of Vitaly Klitschko before he fought David Haye in the press room at the press conference. I was there that night, feet away from it, all kicking off everywhere. It was a very ugly, messy melee that was going on all around you. And obviously, Hay beat a hasty retreat from Germany within hours, and Derek was stopped and interviewed by the police the next morning. But who slaps Klitschko, Vitaly, at a weigh-in, spits water, when you look back on it now, in the face of
Vladimir.
Vladimir Klitschko just before the fight, goes 12 rounds of Italy, puts a great display on of himself. Frank Warren was his promoter then. And then you hear his chair go back at the press conference when David Hayes giving him grief at the back of the room, pursuing a fight with the Klitschkos at the time, or the elder Klitschko. And he becomes mates with David Hay, who and fights him first at Upton Park. 18,000 people there in the rain on a great night. I don't know if you watched it when you were young, 13 years ago.
2012, yeah.
2012, and
It
just
was on
before the
Box Nation, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, just before the Olympic Games, they were separated by a cage
Yeah.
because Derek was going to bite him and all this kind of stuff because David had glassed him in Munich. They become friends. David trains him, gets him into shape. Look at the shape Derek was in last week. Amazing shape. He looked so fit. Um, you know, 3 fights with Tyson Fury, 2 with Dillian White. Was it 2 with Parker or 1?
2 with Parker.
Two with Parker, 2 with White, 3 with Fury. The fight with Usyk where he pressed him for 6 rounds at least. I mean,
Hellenius, he should have got the nod.
Hellenius, what a career! What a career he's had. He's gone from villain to cult, or from some people say from to cult. I can't say that word live on air; it's too rude. But it's been extraordinary, and he was on top form and great fettle last week when we saw him. I'm going to stick my neck out and say that he does this against Otto Wallin and beats him on points, doesn't get stopped, and wins a razor-tight decision, maybe a split decision, to beat Otto Wallin on points.
Okay. I mean, you mentioned so many names. I've just actually pulled up his box rec. I mean, it goes all the way back to Sam Sexton. He had 2 fights with him. Fought Malik Scott, Kevin Johnson. Obviously, all the big fights you mentioned there. Pulev, Ajit Kabayel, he lost to him. He beat Carlos Takam in incredible fashion. Spilker beat David Price. He's beaten Gerald Washington. He's beaten Joe Joyce. I mean, he's, apart from Joshua and Wilder, he has literally fought everyone over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And was supposed to fight Vladimir Klitschko, and that got canned, didn't it?
Yeah. And the only people he hasn't really fought are Deontay Wilder. I'm trying to think of some of the others. That's the only missing part of his resume there in the heavyweight division. And Anthony Joshua, of course, who I don't think he'll ever fight, you know. So it's an incredible career. And he's grown into it, and he's a great character. And as you know now, he knows what to give in interviews. He knows how to be zany, and sometimes goes way out over there, but knows how to bring it back. He's wonderful to be around. He's an absolute entertainer as a fighter, and we'll miss him when he's gone. He's as I say, he's definitely a cult figure in British boxing and maybe even world boxing. And I think he's still ranked 10 in the world with some of the sanctioning bodies, at least one of them right now anyway.
Derek, you know, has kind of calmed down, I think, in the latter part of his career. Obviously, he was very, very volatile. What would you say was the most volatile moment out of him throwing the table across Dillian White and Eddie Hearn and Adam Smith, the brawl in Munich with David Haye and Adam Booth, or the slap with Vitaly Klitschko? Which one was got your attention the most?
I think it was Munich, because he was fined a lot at that point in his career, the kissing of opponents and winding them up. And I think Munich was a big incident, because if you remember, he had his license taken away or suspended by the Boxing Board of Control, and they had to fight on a Luxembourg license that night under the Luxembourg Commission. David Haye wasn't licensed at the time, so he was able to get a license through them as well. So the board couldn't remove his license at the time. So I think it was the Munich extravaganza. I mean, that's where I had not famous, but he and I, where we had a snowball fight, where the only thing I'll ever beat Derek at physically was in a snowball fight in Munich. But he was, like you say, the word for him at the time was volatile. And I think, having had a family, he loves his children. He speaks about them adoringly and very often. And I think a lot of this late career stuff has been for his children. And I think the good thing about him is he allows his children to equalize that animal inside him. And I think it's very good for him. And I think a lot of Derek's emotional pain at having to stop fighting is going to be fulfilled by the growing of his children and being around his children and doing things with them. And I think it'll be very rewarding for him. He's clearly a wonderful father. Speaking to him last week, adores his girls. But I think he will miss boxing. And I think we need to find a role for him in British boxing in some way, where he becomes an ambassador, because I think he's still got a role he can play. What's his delicious TV that he does as well?
Delicious, yeah.
Well, you know, when we're out and about doing things for BoxNation, he often appears, and he, like, every time he appears, it's a funny skit, isn't it? It's more often funny than not.
Yeah.
And he's very savvy about boxing. He knows the rudiments of what's going on and knows the ingredients of what's going on in a promotion and how people are negotiating. And I found him very, very smart in that way.
I think speaking honestly, a lot of us were very surprised what happened last summer with Joe Joyce. Joe was even though he'd been knocked out twice by Zhang, Joe was still a big, big favourite going into that fight. But Derek wasn't taking no for an answer that night at the O2, and you believe it's going to be the same this Saturday, Gareth?
Well, where did he find that inside himself to knock Joe Joyce down late and steal the fight, if you like? It was a very close fight, a very close affair. But I think people were rooting for Derek. A lot of fans were rooting for Derek, as I say, cult figure as he is. And I think the crowd will urge him on in Manchester. They love him up there. I mean, I'll never forget the ding dong he had with Dillian Whyte up there after all the shenanigans. I thought he won that fight. I had him winning it by a round. I mean, Dillian doesn't like hearing that, but it doesn't matter. On record now. And he had a chat with Dillian on Zoom on FaceTime the other day, didn't he? And he said, "Why should I fight you again? You beat me twice already, old bugger." And I think it will get the best out of him on Saturday night. I think the crowd will be behind him. It's a great arena with great acoustics, and it's a massive fight. So you can't wait to be up there. It's going to be great fun.
Yeah, that's live this Saturday from the Co-op, live in Manchester on TNT Sports. It should be a great night. Gareth, just a couple of other things. Get your reaction to Benavidez's win over Morrell. What did you make of it?
I thought Benavidez was very good. I thought Morrell was very good, impressing him as well. I think Benavidez is rightfully just behind Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol in the division. I think he's the third guy. I think he looks too big and too strong for Canelo ever to fight him now. And we believe, obviously, that Saul Canelo Alvarez is signed to fight Terence Crawford in September in Las Vegas. Whether they have a fight before, I don't know, but it may probably not. They're going to earn astronomically for that fight. And I love that fight, by the way. And I know we'll get into it as the year kind of develops. But I thought Morrell was dealt with well by Benavidez. He just slacked off a tiny bit towards the end when he got kind of caught off balance and knocked over, really, more than anything. But I just think that Beterbiev and Bivol are just that level higher than Benavidez and Morrell and Joshua Buatsi and Anthony Yard and maybe Callum Smith as well. You can add him in that equation, in that list. But I do feel that Benavidez has put himself in a position that if Beterbiev beats Bivol for a second time, he may get an opportunity to fight Beterbiev for all the belts, even though I've got a feeling Bivol's going to win this and we're going to get a trilogy between them. Unless Turki Al-Sheikh wants Beterbiev to step in against Jai Opetaia, which is a fight he's been salivating over for a year now. My problem with that is I think Opetaia is that little bit too big for Beterbiev. And by the way, I was with Showtime Sean Porter today. I know a lot of fighters were over because of the Undisputed launch that I wasn't able to be at on Friday because I was up doing the BYB Extreme 36 bare knuckle event in Cardiff, which was brilliant in itself. Barry Jones, the Welshman, getting the light heavyweight title, and he is
Barry Jones.
Knuckle. Yeah, Barry Jones, Barrie. No, not that Barry, not the talkative commentator Barry Jones, the former world champion. A different animal, a big animal called Barry Jones, who knocked out a guy called Gregoris Cisneros of Venezuela. It was a brilliant night's fighting. But I caught up with Showtime Sean today for a thing for Talk Sport, and it's amazing to think that when he was an amateur middleweight, that he beat Alexander Usyk. I know, but boxing's so weird like that, isn't it? That he beat Alexander Usyk over 4 rounds when the USA fought Ukraine in 2007, I think it was. And when you think 5 years later, Alexander Usyk won the heavyweight gold in London, and 13 years later is now considered the best heavyweight of the era. Such a weird sport we inhabit, isn't it?
Definitely is. Adam Azim scored a ninth round knockout over Sergei Lipinets in London over the weekend as well. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here, Gareth. If him and Dalton Smith were to fight tomorrow night, who wins for you?
You know what? I've revised my view after that performance. That was a massive coming of age fight. It's still a 50-50, I think, between them. I think I was edging slightly towards Dalton Smith, but the speed of Adam Azim that we've always known was there, and the way that he toughed it out against Lipinets, and the way that he dealt with him, and the way that he was merciless, and the accuracy and the selection of his punches. He's increasing in resonance with every performance. And right now, I think Adam Azim's speed would win that fight because of what we saw from him on Saturday night. I don't think they'll fight anytime soon. I think they'll fight when one of them has a world title. But I agree with Shane and Barry McGuigan that if Dalton Smith and Adam Azim do fight, they need a big money deal on the table for that fight because there's a lot at stake for both men. But at this, or as much money as they could possibly earn, but also that.
Are we not going to run into a Khan Brook situation potentially where they might fight when?
Yeah, we might. I hope not. I mean, I hope we get a DeGale somewhere between Khan and Brook and DeGale and Groves, where maybe one of them does have a world title. I do agree. I was looking at the rankings. I do agree with Shane, or whichever it was, Shane or Barry, saying that Adam is ready for an Albert Puello, who's the WBC title holder at the moment with Devin Haney in recess. Jose Valenzuela, the WBA champion. I think Isaac Cruz he could beat.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I really do. Because he's smart and in and out. If he employs his strategy right, he's not getting caught as much as I thought he was going to do as he stepped up the levels. Lipinets is a very tough guy. The only element I'd throw in there to consider is that Lipinets is 35, and the fight with Boots Ennis, the 7th round stoppage, would have taken something out of him. But when you look at it, it's a great benchmark that is created, and his stock has definitely risen with the 9th round stoppage. He's not ready for a Tio Lopez. Subriel Matias might be a tough opponent for him. Cambosos might be a good opponent for him to just highlight his skills. But you could say much the same of Dalton Smith. Right now, I mean, I was looking at the Ring magazine rankings earlier. I wonder. Adam Azim is still not in the top 10, and neither is Dalton Smith. But Josh Taylor, I think Josh Taylor would be a great opponent for him. I think Richardson Hitchens would be a massive test for both of them. Liam Paro. There's some great, I mean, that's a great division. Arnold Barboza is about to fight Jack Catterall. And then there's Catterall himself as well. So, wow, there's some great fights to come. How they manage those two is going to be very, very interesting. Smith and Adam Azim.
On that night, I saw 2 or 3 videos go out from TalkSport. Spencer Oliver, Adam Catterall, etc. were on hand there at the Adam Azim fight at Wembley Arena, and they spoke to Martin Bakole and Ben Shalom, who said the fight with Joshua is done for Congo. Do you know anything about this? Is that true?
Well, I mean, obviously, with them saying that, I had to check that out with certain people today who will remain nameless off the record. But I'm hearing from the Joshua side that there hasn't even been a conversation. But maybe this is Martin Bakole and his team trying to speak the fight into reality given that Anthony Joshua hasn't got a fight yet and Tyson Fury is retired, and that's his obvious fight this summer. So, I mean, of course, it would be a major spectacle in Africa, in Congo, in that stadium that Ali and Foreman fought in. That's now called the George Foreman Ali Frazier. Muhammad Ali George Foreman Stadium. Nothing to do with Frazier. That it's a great event to have there if they can do it. 51 years on from the Rumble in the Jungle, but I'm sorry, I'm hearing that there hasn't even been a conversation about it. I think it's something that Billy Nelson, his trainer, Ben Shalom, maybe it's being discussed. It's gone across the desk of Turki Al Sheikh, and he said, "Yeah, I like the sound of that." But what I'm hearing from the Joshua camp is it's not even a discussion right now.
Yeah. Okay. Listen, on that note, Gareth, I will see you up in Manchester for Chisora-Wallin. Take care and thank you very much for your time.
Cheers, Umar. Always a pleasure.
Good man. See you, G.
Cheers.